All right, welcome everyone. Can you all hear me? Give me the thumbs up if you can. All right. Is the quality okay? Am I smooth and stuff? Does my swagger get conveyed through the audio and the clarity of the video? Cool. Well, so good to have you here. I'm surprised that there aren't more participants at this call, actually. But wonder why that is. It's lower than average. I thought people would like to ask their questions. Here we go. You guys will have to represent the whole group. No pressure. Sorry about the painting behind me. It's two guys fucking a boat and a woman just watching. To each their own. All right. Let's take a few minutes of silence together. I know it's hard if you have children, but maybe they can join in too. See if your consciousness is dropped below the head yet, into the heart. And check if that heart is, rather than a physical heart, if it's an open field. And just increase the space of it. And see if you can reach out without grasping, just reach out in a positive sense. Send out towards everyone here on this call. I want to just re-emphasize that this is family, chosen family, family chosen by vibration, and that you're not in this alone. So I really encourage you to reach out to the people of this group whenever you want to, need to, feel like it, something subtle comes up, whatever it is. Don't be a loner. Let that be the motto of this group. Even if like last month, I haven't been as engaged, I still hope that you guys are integrating everything that's been shared and working together to build that cohesiveness and not take the conditioned way out, which is to drop back into being a loner. Really stay with the group, keep opening the heart, keep reaching out, keep being transparent. It requires a little bit of momentum building. It requires a little bit of effort at first because it's not how we're conditioned in our society. So if we stop doing that too soon, before reaching a new threshold, a new momentum, a new direction, we will fall back into our isolated little bubbles. It's just tempting. It almost feels more natural, but it's not more natural. It's just conditioned. It's just more what you're used to. So keep reaching out, keep being slightly uncomfortable, and find comfort in that, find support in that. Don't hesitate, don't be afraid, don't be shy, and when you are, reach out, be a little uncomfortable. Really make use of this group. And that's just physically and obviously, but also non-physically, energetically. Again, visualize that this field literally is like a database, like a shared server to which you can upload and download experiences, advice, support, clarity. Been there, done that. Some of you have been there, done that. Others are still going through what you've already been through, and vice versa. So to grow as a group is much faster. It's much more efficient. Use it to your advantage in this amazing time of rapid growth. And you won't really experience the benefits of this until you really try. So you really put yourself out there. And if you have difficulties reaching out, then reach out about having difficulties reaching out. But find some way to connect your process to someone else or multiple people in the group, so that a lot of this has to do also with just making other people aware of your process, of your journey. Just that is generally enough to sort of offload the pressure and to undermine the isolation bubble that can occur very quickly in our minds. Just to let someone else know what's going on for you is such a relief. even just one person. Because now it's shared. Now your bubble is popped. Now there's a reality to it outside of your own thoughts. Now there's a reference point. Now there's feedback. Now there's reflection. Now there's a space to be held. Now you're seen. Now you're beginning to blend outside your own bubble. Things become more productive, more clear, more easily. Take a deep breath. Feel the appreciation for this group. All right. Thank you. Who would like to share? And questions are absolutely welcome. But also, what I'd like to encourage us all to do for the remainder of this course is to start focusing more on the process itself, on who you are and how it's expressed, how you deal with it. More like a coaching program where you're coaching the coach, so to speak, or teaching the teacher, rather than just Q&A. But questions are also accepted. But I'm really interested to get into the details of your process, your experience, like how do you deal with things? Where's the balance off, perhaps, and where can there be greater balance, etc. All right, I'm going to unmute you now. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I had a question, but it is pretty much sharing of my process, so that should cover both. It's about processing emotions. I have learned a lot of new things this year about this, and they've been quite different from what I've been doing the years before. And the difference lies in the last few years. All I did when I had emotions was I saw them as signposts back home, basically, and a signpost that whatever I'm thinking, if it's a negative emotion, that it's not in line with my higher self, and therefore I don't need to believe it, and I can look the other way, basically. I can align myself. And this made me a very happy person. The last few years, I've just been completely the happiest person I've ever met. So everything was great. The only thing was I had experienced before this very clear sort of I state and very like being the witness, very aligned. And that wasn't exactly the case then. And then this year, these people came in my life and things started happening, and I really learned how to allow emotions and actually process them and go through them. And I did this, which was a bit against what I'd learned before, so I wasn't too sure about it. But once I started doing it, I saw the most amazing results. Like I really released all these things. My character started changing it for the better. Like very, very big growth started happening. So I started believing that this is the way. But then, yeah, so I basically see three ways of dealing with emotions. One is you either analyze it and learn from it. And the second one is you drop the story and you just be with the emotion, the sentiment, and the pain or the fear. You just be with it. And the third option, and this is why I'm asking this now, is because I was at Barlow and I was listening to your self-realization sessions, self-realization school, season 1, together with a few other people here. And that all focused very much on just seeing emotions as a signpost and focusing away from them, basically. And this is for me very easy. And this is, yeah, it feels really good to do it now, because lately I've been going through so many emotions again, and it sort of spiraled out of hand and like a snowball just made my human story so big, and so identified with it again. That wasn't right. I knew that. So it feels really good to be back where more in the, you know, connected state. But now, since it had such amazing results for me, and the same for my children, because I've always been teaching my children, if something feels like sad, or then it's not aligned. And so I've always been doing this. And now, like then I started teaching them what I'd learned as well, to fully accept the emotions. And I had like anger releasing sessions with my 8-year-old daughter, and my son, I allowed him to cry everything out. And it had amazing results for them too. Like they've become such wise kids now, and they're so much more self-confident. They have less like funny, I don't know, fears and things. So my question is there such a thing as spiritual bypassing? First of all, like I'd love to hear you speak a little bit about that. And secondly, is there maybe a difference in, like, for example, us, we want to be shepherds, we want to purify ourselves. Is it then necessary to not just look away and do allow the emotions, because that might be good for growth? And the answer that I found myself is, the answer that I found myself is that you need to be fully aligned in order to go through processing the emotions. So there's no point being in the middle of your story and being completely upset or in all these emotions. Then it might be good to look the other way, to get centered. And once you're really in the I state, then you can allow the emotions. And that's one. So basically it depends on the state you're in, which way you should go. I think that's the answer. And but yeah, I'd love to hear you explain a bit about this. I can't hear you.
Sorry, yeah, I muted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, great question. So without the story, there is no emotion. So it's a bit of a misnomer to say to experience the emotion without the story, because it's kind of impossible. Now, there may be sensations, but the emotion doesn't really exist if there's no story. So we can make the story subtler and make it feel less narrated, like there's less of a narrative, there's less of a story. But there's still some of a story if the emotion is still there. If there's truly no story, then there is no emotion. I like what you finished with when you said that you can't really process the emotion if you're completely in the story. So the only way to get clear on the process behind the emotion, why you generated the emotional sensation, is to come from a space of clarity, to come from a space of not being attached to fueling the story, and then looking into what it was that you believed. It's all a matter of beliefs, right? Emotions are the results of beliefs. So we can only look into the beliefs if we're not clouded with all the active narratives, the active stories that are going on. Here's a way to see it. Also pertaining to your part of the question where you ask us as shepherds, does something else apply to us as shepherds rather than, would you give different advice to the average Joe versus the shepherd? And a little bit, yes. So I'm assuming that most of the shepherds here are actually wanderers. 1 second, my laptop is heating up because it's on a pillow. I gotta put a flat surface underneath it. Let's just... Okay, something I keep coming back to lately when I'm speaking with people that are, in a sense, advanced, like on a soul level, perhaps. And this may be of service to you guys, which is a nice way to see this, to make this distinction between, also between empowerment and enlightenment, if you will, or between working on the vehicle, working on the smaller self, using feedback, using teachings, using practices and meditations. It all deals with the temporal world. It all deals with the temporal self, right? So where enlightenment is about realizing the non-temporal self, the timeless self. A good way to make this distinction clear to you, or to understand why there's this distinction or how to apply it, is to see that, let's say I were to give you feedback on something and you were to take it personally, then you wouldn't be very open to it. You'd be offended perhaps, or you'd be triggered. But then you want to do the work, because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to do that work. So, but what makes it so much easier is to see that you're not actually doing the work so much for yourself. And this vehicle that you've taken on is literally made up of the substance of this world. You had to take on a suit, you had to take on a body. And this body is made of chemicals, if you will, and it's made of certain energetics, and it's made of certain dynamics and certain conditionings. So the body and the mind that you've chosen, and the personality that has resulted out of it, which you are now doing work on, has never been you, will never be you, can never be you. It's literally components of this world. And so your personality is, in most cases, nothing but a random series of coping mechanisms, things that you've picked up subliminally along the way. And so if you realize this, if you really see this clearly, that the personality that you're working on does not define you to begin with, then the question arises, why would we even work on a personality? Why do we even work on empowerment? Why do we even investigate into thoughts and beliefs? Why not just purely rest beyond over and over again? Well, the answer to this would be to optimize the vehicle for better translation of who you are into this world. So where any work of empowerment, any work on self, any work on the emotions, on the thoughts, on the belief systems, the analytical side of things, as you said, or the investigative side of things, all of that, the purpose of that is not to improve yourself. It is to improve the vehicle. It is to cleanse or purify or empower the materials that you took on as an operational self that can then convey your calling, your message, your core vibration into this world more efficiently. Now you're doing it anyway, like whether you're efficient on a human level or not, on a product, on a form level or not, you're doing it anyway. Your vibration shines. That's why you took on the assignment. That's why you came here. You were approved for the job, so to speak, because your vibration was going to be of service regardless. It was going to enlighten the planet regardless. So you don't really even have to worry too much about it. But as a shepherd, as an active shepherd or civilization upgrader, and again, there's a distinction between these two, but they have a big overlap. So as a shepherd or civilization upgrader or civilization upgrader, you will find that you will want to be more efficient. You will want to be better at playing the game. You will want to be more clear in your translations, in your wordings, in how you deal with situations, in how you reflect other people, in how you handle emotions and all that stuff. You want to be more efficient in it. So now for the shepherd, empowerment is less about the awakening of self, and it's more about the optimizing of the vehicle from self into this world. Whereas for the average Joe, who is perhaps a native of Earth, who has been with Earth for thousands of years, reincarnated, etc., and who hasn't really attained beyond the third density yet, fully on a soul level, for them, empowerment is actually cutting edge. It equals self-realization, you could say. Empowerment equals them realizing more of themselves, awakening more of what they're capable of, who they are, and all that. It's because they are identified with a vehicle, with a point of view. The shepherd, most shepherds by nature are multidimensional creatures already. I mean, everyone is, but they are more advanced in that way. They're more, you could call them old souls or wanderers, if you will, travelers, cosmic voyagers, travelers. So to them, different things apply for different reasons. And when self-realization can be detached from empowerment and from any kind of analytical process, when self-realization is simply the act of direct self-knowledge, self-recognition, resting in the self, abiding as the self, then why would one still do the work on this level? Now the context changes from in order to realize more of myself to in order to improve or streamline this vehicle so that the service can be improved and that the vibration can come through these vehicles more efficiently. So just a different way to see it. So now spiritual bypassing, which in my opinion doesn't really exist. You can fake it, you can fool yourself for a while, but it doesn't really exist because you're not really bypassing anything, you're still miserable. If you're spiritually bypassing, that implies that you can bypass something and still be spiritual, or still be aligned, or still be happy. But that's never the case, because people who practice spiritual bypassing, they are not happy, they are not aligned, they're not clear, they're usually very chaotic or messed up, right? And so it doesn't work. Like, you're not actually able to bypass. You may fool yourself in thinking that you're happier, but you're not actually bypassing anything. It's impossible. That's why it's almost a moot point. I understand the concept, but it becomes this weird philosophy for people where you shouldn't spiritually bypass. Well, actually, it's impossible to spiritually bypass. So let's look at this whole thing differently and see what's actually going on in the experience that you're having. If you're just being honest with your experience, you will see when you're in or out of alignment with your perspective. So the difference between resting as awareness, if you will, or resting beyond the emotional realm, when an emotion arises, when a trigger arises, the difference between that and spiritual bypassing, as it's classically determined, or as it's usually defined, is that the spiritual bypasser replaces one perspective for another. Whereas the awakener, if you will, or the one who's resting in the true self, is replacing the perspective with no perspective. And in that is the acceptance, in that is automatic allowance. There's no bypassing of anything, but the story drops, and so the emotion drops. Whereas if I'm spiritually bypassing, it means I don't want to feel the emotion, and I'm going to seek for a perspective that will not really resolve my original perspective, but just temporarily replace it with a better feeling one. Now, this is not always a negative practice, because it can generate a different momentum. It can increase your frequency temporarily, but if you repeat that temporarily over and over again, you can actually elevate your baseline vibration, as long as it's not a constant game of avoiding, but it's just a boost that you give yourself in that moment, because you got to get out of the rut. And then if it's a pattern that keeps coming back, you have to sooner or later investigate into the cause of that rut. And so, but this is all fairly relative. This is playing with the character. And it's important to the shepherd to realize that you're not the character. That includes all the work that you're doing on yourself. It's kind of irrelevant from the point of view of what you are, what you really are. So the perfection that we sometimes seek to attain through the vehicle, through optimizing ourselves, through taking on feedback, through looking at our beliefs, sometimes that's a drive. And a lot of people actually, it's a drive towards perfection, but it's misplaced perfection. It's trying to attain perfection of the self in form. That indicates that we've already identified the self with stuff, with appearances, with the body, with the mind. But if you were so clear on this distinction between self and form, or self and function here in the world, worldly function, if you were so clear on that, then I could give you feedback and you would not give a fuck. It literally would not sway you in any which way. I could say everything I wanted to say about your body, your mind, your behavior, your spiritual level of consciousness, and it literally would not sway you one bit. And yet at the same time, it wouldn't not sway you because you're avoiding or ignoring what I'm saying. It just actually wouldn't sway you or affect you even while you're listening to everything I'm saying, and you're even paying attention to the details of what I'm saying and where it may be true. So you can look at that, but because you have disidentified yourself from the vehicle which is made up of this world, and the personality, which is a combination of random events generated by parents, family, society, media, etc., and you stop identifying with that puppet, that mechanism, that product of stuff, and you see that there's no life in that, there's no you in that. It's appearing in front of you. It's an appearance, it's a puppet in front of you. But you're the master, you're the consciousness, you're the silence. You're not the thoughts, you're not the thinker, you're not the worrier, you're not the one who's clenched up right now, you're not the one who's tight, you're not the one who's afraid, you're not the one who's confused. That's all part of the puppet. Stop believing it's you. If you can do that, there will be much greater space. And now when feedback is given, whether from self-reflection or from others, you'll be able to investigate, but for the purpose of aligning the vehicle, for the purpose of smoothing out the kinks, for the purpose of accelerating your expression, your capacity to crystallize and express into this world. But in essence, it's never got anything to do with you. It's the same as walking into a clothing store and deciding to pick the clothes that you actually like versus the first clothes that you run into. Like, oh, let me just grab this, even though it's a skirt and I'm a dude and it doesn't really suit me, but what the fuck, doesn't matter. That's kind of incarnation, that's conditioning, that's your personality as it currently is. Your personality, at least to a percentage, personality which you may or may not have identified to different degrees, is literally made up of the clothing that you ran into when you first were born. Whatever you were first exposed to, you just took on, right? Because you didn't have much of a choice. You just took on what you were first exposed to, which in most cases is the parents. So literally, you would not walk into a clothing store and literally pick the first things on the rack and like buy that. Or if you do, that's fine too, because it doesn't have anything to do with you. And you know that. And you don't really have an interest in fitting in or blending or having a body that matches your vibration. If you don't really care about it, it doesn't matter anyway. But considering that you're here to be of service, and you're also here maybe for the joy of allowing your journey to be nourished by being a vehicle that's an expression of your vibration as much as possible. It will never fully catch the vibration of what you are. It will always be a pale reflection. But nevertheless, you may as well have fun being and owning and expressing and enjoying these vehicles and shaping them according to your highest vibration, as much as you can translate that into the world of form and earth stuff. So if you go into the clothing store, you would just take some time. You would be careful. You'd be deliberate. You would try on the clothing, see if they fit you before buying. You wouldn't buy wrong size clothing just because it was the first thing on the rack. You would try it on. Do I even like it? Does it resonate? Does it feel good? Is the emotional guidance system letting me know this is a series of thoughts or behaviors or patterns, or this is a way of seeing that resonates for me? I like these clothes, basically, and now I'm going to try them on and see if they actually fit me. I'm going to receive the feedback that I get from my catalyst and my reflections and see if this actually suits me. I'm going to learn from that. And if it suits me, I'm going to take it on for a while. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to purchase it. I'm going to become that personality just because I can. Or I'm going to choose to express myself through this personality just because I can. So now the investigation is about the clothing that you're wearing. It's not ever about you. It couldn't ever be about you. I couldn't ever give any feedback about you. I couldn't ever reflect you. I can only reflect everything that you're not. And we can help each other optimize what we're not to become a clearer reflection of what we are, but it will always remain what we're not. It just becomes less not us, but it will never become us. If you can come to terms with that, accept that, and be liberated by it and feel empowered through that, then your whole relationship to looking at emotions and patterns would be very different. Instead of it looking at you, it will feel like it's you just taking off your clothes for a second, spreading them out in the bed and going, I wonder, do I really like this shirt still? Does this underwear still fit me? I've been wearing it for 8 years and it's kind of got holes in it. Practical for some occasions, but not really that fashionable. So then you change your wardrobe or you throw out what doesn't suit you anymore, right? So why treat the personality any different than a set of clothes? It's not who you are. You know that by now, at least conceptually, but also instinctively, if not directly. So the more, first you know it conceptually, well, actually first you know it instinctively, but then it comes to the conscious mind conceptually. Then the conceptual knowledge of self-realization starts to reconnect to the instinctual knowledge. Now it starts to open up. Now it starts to become more direct. And then when that instinctive recognition is trusted, it becomes direct experience or direct contact. So you all have different degrees of experience with that by now. And I really encourage you to see any type of feedback, any type of work on self as actually work on not self. So instead of doing the work on yourself, do the work on your not self. And see, part of this work is to really see that you're not that self. So every feedback from now on, every piece of feedback, advice, self-reflection, whether given by you or given by other self, serves two functions. A, it shows you what about your not self could be improved for the purpose of being a clear crystallization of your soul into this world, therefore being a better translation device. It's just about optimizing the translation device, making it more balanced, making it more skillful, making it more masterful, more intelligent, more aligned, etc. And therefore, you'll also have a more enjoyable physical experience because you'll be allowing that bliss to come through your veins, so to speak, more. And so you'll also feel better as a physical creature, at least most of the time, usually. And two, it's not only then about improving the vehicle, mostly for service to others, and also for nourishment of self. But the second part of any piece of feedback or self-reflection or investigative process now becomes, where do I still take personally that which I'm seeing about this not self? Where do I still feel it's me seeing part of myself as opposed to part of my not self? And this is not about disassociating and hiding out in a thought. This is not about spiritual bypassing. This is about actually seeing the truth, which is I can never be form. I could never be form because I always see form. It's that simple. I could never be what I see. I could never be the substance that I'm working on. Because I'm the creator that's working on the substance. I could never be the substance. I'm just creating a piece of art that's different every moment. How could I be that? I see all of it. I know all of it. I'm able to make all of it change. When it all disappears, I still exist. When it all reappears, I still exist. While it's all changing, I still exist. So have every piece of feedback be clear. If you're afraid of feedback, if you're afraid of reflections from your friends or family or me or other teachers or each other, then you're still taking yourself to be the vehicle. And you're still taking responsibility, in a sense, in a negative sense, for all the stuff that's not you to begin with. So I'd like you to first give yourself permission to bypass completely, if you will, but truly, not by using another thought, but by actually realizing that ultimately nothing that you consider you currently actually is you. It's just stuff taken on from this planet. It's the vehicle you had to come in order to take on this job. It's like when you apply for a job at Wendy's, you're gonna have to carry or gonna have to clothe yourself in Wendy's clothing. So it's no different than that. If you want to accept an assignment on planet Earth in this civilization, then you have to take on a physical body that's of this time and of this place. And that comes with certain complications, certain challenges, certain stuff. And now the problem is that you've taken on the stuff as if it's you. So then when I reflect you, which is not you, but you think is you. And so you take it personally and you build barriers and you defend yourself and you start bypassing because you're afraid, because you think that this is you. But when you really know this is not you, then there's no fear to look at it, right? If everyone here understood that none of us could ever be defined by the stuff that's appearing in front of us, then feedback would be welcomed. Because then the only purpose behind improvement of self, of smaller self, of the expression self, the only purpose behind that is to improve the channel. That's it. It doesn't actually change what you are. It doesn't improve what you are. It just improves your capacity to receive what you are into this world and reflect upon it and consciously deal with it. But it doesn't actually change what you are. It's not a direct answer to your question, but does it answer your question?
Yes, it was a direct answer. I really feel like everything you've just said just confirmed to me what I figured. So I'm very happy.
Sweet, wonderful.
Thank you.
So Leonie, can you hear me? Cool, somehow you're standing out to me right now. I don't know why. If later on in this call or you have something to share or right now, just let us know, but feel free also to just tune into it for a little bit. If not, that's totally fine too. But what I'm going to start doing in the sessions from now on is I'm just going to kind of point fingers at some of you guys because it's quite comfortable from behind the camera. But if I notice that there's something that could benefit the group or you, or something is stuck or something is relevant or beneficial or whatever, anything along those lines, if for whatever reason you stick out to me, I will let you know about it, and then you can do with that as you want. But so you, Susan, feel free to, or Anna, is it not? Susan.
Anna, yes. Well, doesn't matter. So what I've been experiencing lately in my process is a lot around actually sharing the message more and sharing the calling more. And like what I've been experiencing a lot is the misinterpretations where at a certain point almost everything can be misinterpreted. And it's interesting, like it can, of course, like for me myself, like it can like bring up a lot of things and clear the vehicle even more of like, okay, where am I still believing that this feedback actually matters? But there's a part of me that's really struggling because I see a lot around me that even with spiritual teachings, like a lot is being tried to be understood from the mind. And I just feel like the connection is going through the heart. And I've really been struggling with how to, I'm not entirely sure what the word is, but how to actually like help people drop into the heart more in a way, like help people get there more. And I've been getting a lot of reflections that are completely like, then I'm getting, it's like a lot of mind reflection. So I know there's something in my field that's maybe not completely aligned there, but I'm getting a lot of misinterpretations around that. And I'm starting to, yeah, I feel like that's something that I would like to have some clarity on. And I'm feeling a little stuck in that. I'm not entirely sure if I'm being clear here.
Could you give us an example? Make it a little bit more concrete or direct.
Okay. So we had a meeting here the other day, and I felt a lot of the things that were being spoken about were really from the mind, like still like what you were explaining the other day about the crutches, like still getting, like using a crutch to get somewhere, right? So a lot of the things from like the mind, like how are we going to do this? And then people were like, okay, well, I have this perspective. And then, no, I have this perspective. Maybe you should change your perspective. Well, I can change your perception. How about you change this? And then it started to become this whole mind game where everything went completely like everywhere. At a certain point, I didn't know anymore where everything was going. And I think a lot of people were lost.
So,
but I felt later.
Are you saying that one of my talks actually did not get permanently integrated there forever for everyone?
Isn't that great?
That's so surprising.
I know.
Proceed.
So, question being, I feel like there is somewhere that I feel like there is an understanding of what you're saying. And I feel like at a certain point I do resonate and I do feel that. But I'm not entirely sure like how to perhaps share or how to, yeah, get from that place and help people or help. I don't like the word help, but like, in such a meeting, like for me, it's really like confusing as to what is at that point the right thing to do, you know?
Yeah, I hear you. Well, so the thing that there's layers to it. It really depends on who you are, where you're at. So if what you're saying is true, and you saw something at a level that they haven't fully integrated yet, then if that's the case, like one thing about that is determining if that's even the case, which is a tricky thing, which is part of what you're asking about, I think. But let's say that it is true. Let's just skip to that for a second. So if you're seeing something and a group of people that you're with, or even one person, or even a nation or the world, does not see what you're seeing, and you know for sure, you know in your heart of hearts, if you will, that what you're seeing is more beneficial. It actually is of greater benefit. It is actually more direct. It is actually of an elevated state. Then it becomes your duty or honor or responsibility, if you will, and your challenge simultaneously to somehow skillfully bring that message to that group. So if you are doubting yourself in that space, then that will be greatly stifled. It will be more distorted than it needs to be. If you could have full confidence in what you're seeing in that moment without it going into insecurity/arrogance, which would then want to take on a role for its own sake to proliferate itself as separate from others. But if assuming none of that is there and that it's really you're just, you see something other people don't, then that appoints you as leader naturally. Now the challenge is that non-leaders do not recognize leaders. They only recognize other non-leaders, and they appoint non-leaders as leaders and all that stuff. So, and the leader is not supposed to step up and take leadership. There's all these taboos and stuff. So the challenge also is how to stand up and take on a leadership role without it rubbing people the wrong way, or without it becoming detrimental or inefficient, or without it becoming about you as a person. So that, first of all, anything in response to that for
now? Resonate in the sense that I have done a lot of like inner work, whether it came from arrogance, and it didn't. And then it actually came to the point where I was like, shit, I kind of know that I have to step up into this role at some point. But it kind of became like a shit kind of thing, because I feel like there's still something that is holding on to not wanting to be in that position. So that was an interesting process that I had going on already.
So imagine not having that at all, like not having any of that personal attachment or hesitation or attachment to outcome of that role, and you're just doing it because it's what needs to be done in that moment, and it's just obvious and clear and it feels good. Imagine being in that state and then sharing. I'm pretty convinced that people will notice the truth when it's spoken, and so they will listen. If it makes sense, they will listen. I mean, the group is mature enough, at least the average is mature enough to see when something is really much better than everything else offered. They'll be able to resonate with it and recognize it and let go of some of their perspectives, if not all. So yeah, maybe it is a reflection of your own insecurity to step into that leadership role and to just do what needs to be done and just be really clear in what you see. And it could be such a gift to them if you just did that. And who knows, you may even enjoy doing it.
Cooked.
Does this answer your question, or is there any other component?
Well, the component that I was wondering about was, but perhaps that already arises when I just let go of any of the insecurities that I have around it. Because the component that I was wondering about is like that I still see a lot of things happening from the mind, like trying to analyze things from the mind, whereas actually that's not leading anywhere. But now that I'm asking this question, like I also notice that it's kind of more of a mind thing now. And I think I just have to, in a way, just be clear about, become clearer automatically. So thank you. I think the question is answered.
Cool. Good luck.
Thanks.
Flavio?
Hi, Bentinho.
Hey.
So it's more like a sharing too. In a way, it has like a question, I think, inside my sharing as well. But just, let's say, since the beginning of Tier 1, a couple of months ago, 3 months ago, my biggest question, I think, also the big intention of being part of this journey was to shift, like a considerable shift into being a shepherd, or into actually having, in my case, like a more meaningful life, which would come from serving others. And I think my main difficulty or obstacle was always the professional side, which so far I'm realizing more and more it was attached to, or it was linked to, self-worthiness. So I'm going to prove that I have value, hence I'm going to have success and blah, blah, blah. So I'm also doing like a one-on-one, like coaching with Benita inside the group. So it's more like I'm having a one-on-one inside the Tier 1 thing, which is helping me to go through a lot of stuff. And that's also been great, even though I haven't been sharing on the group too much, which I think I should more. But I think what has been coming through to the surface, and it's been very challenging, is as we dig on, maybe like even back to your first homework, like why I'm not there yet. And then I thought there should be a lot of things to, let's say, achieve or be. So I'm realizing, especially with Benita, in terms of sometimes I get into really like amazing states of just pure beingness. And I was like, oh my God, this is just like being. All I want is just to be. And then you can also see the mind trying to make something out of it. Like, okay, so what's your new profession from that? Like, or are you going to be a leader of what? Or what are you going to do? Are you going to do lectures? Are you going to do speeches? And then blah, blah, blah. And then I try to just like not follow that thinking. But so that's one thing. Like parallelly, I'm also seeing that as the deeper as I go into why I'm not there yet, like I find like tremendous resistance of actually allowing myself just to be the I. And I cannot blame anyone for that because it's just like inside. And I've been passing through like some really like dark moments into releasing beliefs from the non-self, but they were like so inherently
Good. It almost sounded like you were having too much fun, and it's not fair for everyone. So yeah, I'm really happy you moved through some dark spaces. It's really good.
What do you mean? To do what? Dark phases.
No, I'm just really happy that you also moved through some shit, you know, and some dark spaces, and you were making it sound too easy for everyone else. It's not fair.
So, and then sometimes when it gets too dark and I think I'm going to put this on the group, it seems sometimes a lot of work to explain everything and to share. Sometimes I just withdraw from doing it, but it's been done, the work. So I think maybe it's like more, and so I think when it gets to the question is, the more I get acquainted with the state of being, and then comes like a natural realization, and then being is just like really, really good. And then I start to express that. Let's say I start to make drawings, or I start to write some stuff on Facebook, very like shyly, like I'm very shy to those kind of things. Comes like a really great fear of judgment. So two things, like one, as it gets darker and darker, I find great resistances with which I have been releasing one by one. And that's kind of the tough. So this, and the second thing is when I am in the being state and super open and I want to share, the challenging is to overcome or to actually pass through the fear of being judged by others. And then sometimes either by trauma or by whatever it is, or like in past communities, I never felt really, not the space, but I never felt the support that I could just share, like, I don't know, sometimes wisdom or stuff. So I know for the shepherd, it is crucial to, when you are in that center place and then, okay, I'm going to share this, and not to care about the self-image. So maybe I just need a little push on that particular context.
Well, if you know where the problem lies, which is identification with what you're not, taking things personally, then why do you need a push? Like, that's just like asking me to buy your groceries for you or something like that. It's like, you know, you need the groceries. You have all the time in the world to get your own groceries, but yet you're calling my phone and you're wanting me to do groceries for you. Why? You give yourself the push, motherfucker. What's lacking in the motivation? Why not enough motivation to naturally push yourself? If you see, you totally describe what's happening for you, so you're clear on the process. It's not ignorance. Yeah. So it must be unwillingness or having misplaced benefit somewhere where it's not really present, as opposed to where it actually is present. And when you misplace that, you will act out of alignment with yourself. But when you replace it in its proper place, if you see benefit where it's actually beneficial to go, then you will go in that direction. You won't need a kick in the butt. You won't need a push of the edge, so to speak.
I think it's basically fear. First thing that comes to my mind is just fear of being judged. I think that's the thing.
Okay, but you know that what you are could never be judged, right?
Right. Which means I'm identified with what I'm not at a certain degree, at somehow.
Exactly.
Huh?
Yes, exactly. So drop it. See where you're identified with the person, with the skin line, with the body. How do you still feel that you're inside of the body? And that therefore you're a victim of the world, and everything that happens to you, and everything that's said to you is happening to you, is said to you. Everything that happens to your body is happening to you. Where do you still feel that's true? Probably in quite a few places. So look them up, feel into that, and see if you can do the neti thing. You know, I'm not this, I'm not that. See it until you see it. The work is quite simple. Just go to the place where you're identified and see that it's not true. That's it. And you can use whatever millions of methods you want for that, or no method. It's just about the seeing that it's not what you are. But you have to make that experiential. You have to be able to focus for longer than 1 second. You have to just stay with it. It has to be important to you. Otherwise, the next thought and the next thought and the next person and the next piece of music and the next movie, they'll all distract you. But if you can sit for longer than a minute, just like actually staying tuned in to where you're full of shit, where you're identified with what you're not, then it will start to clarify. It will start to release itself. You don't need methods. You don't need pushes. You don't need teachers. Not really. Just gotta do the simple work. Where am I attached? Why am I attached? It's because I believe it will benefit me. But who's the me that believes it will benefit out of this petty-minded strategy? Well, it must be the me that is petty-minded. It must be the me that's inside the skin line, that lives inside the skull. That me. But then look into that. Is that true? Am I inside the skull? Can the skin line contain my sense of me? Is that what I am?
And if I get into more specifics on that time that I am inquiring, I guess that would help too, right? If I get into minutia of where this is actually getting my attention precisely, is precision something that is considerable at that point of inquiry?
You're still nitpicking. You're still playing a very, very small game.
Yeah.
So it's at this point, it's a fetish. It's a fetish of what you're not, trying to like find yourself in it.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
So if you really care about freedom, which you don't yet, you care about Flavio becoming a better person. You don't care about freedom just yet, which is okay. But observing that will accelerate your maturity and your care for freedom. If you really cared for freedom, none of these things would arise for you because you wouldn't give a shit. You'd just you'd be doing the actual work, which is to release all identification from self so you can be formless and free and unaffectable and untriggerable, and no one can affect you. No one can tell you who you are. Now that's a power you can't attain through tweaking the vehicle. It has to be direct desire and direct realization.
So if I am still caring more about Flavio, it's because I'm seeing more benefits somehow twisted in that.
Yeah, it's because you still identify with the vehicle that you took on in order to enter this world. And you actually look from the vehicle's points of view as if they're your own. You actually think that the thoughts you're having right now are your thoughts and that they're therefore are beneficial. And from the vehicle, the mind that is designed to protect the vehicle will always seek for things to tweak and improve and secure and maintain and what have you. So it will never want freedom. Flavio will never want freedom. That's the hard truth. Like none of you guys, Fifi, Anthony, Leonie, Susan, none of you guys want freedom. So it has to come from a different place. It won't come from your mind. It won't come from your ideas. It won't come from strategies. It won't come from observations. It won't come from feedback. It won't come from reflections. That all has to do with Flavio. Flavio is just a random product of coping mechanisms given to him by his parents. So if you're listening to those desires, then you're listening to the false self's desires. And you're still mistaking your true desire for freedom to be the desires of tweaking the personality. But if you understand that tweaking the personality is only relevant to improve your service to others because you're improving the channel, the purity of the channel, which is great. I'm saying you should do that. But I'm saying you should understand that it's not work on you. It's a work on the vehicle. And if you're still identified with the vehicle, you'll feel trapped by the outcome of your work and by the reflections you get from others when you expose yourself and share what you're not.
Right, yeah.
And in a way, in a sort of a retarded way, it makes sense that we feel afraid that people will see us negatively when we share something about our not self, because we don't want others to confirm that we are what we're not. So if I share something really embarrassing with you and you will judge me for it as if I am the thing that happened, then that will reinforce the sense that I am indeed the things that happen.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where the fear comes from.
What? The identification is already there. So you just got to look for the identification. Where are you identified with the person? As the person.
Yeah, but what you mentioned now makes perfect sense. And I don't want for them to reinforce what I'm not. So that's hence then I feel the fear, and then I hold back.
That's still an insight. Just drop it. You're still talking. Shut the fuck up. You're still turning it into insights and tools. If you get what I'm saying, you would just drop into desire for intense freedom right now. And then you would need no tool or mechanism. That is the job of the shepherd, is to want freedom more than anything else and to be of service. If you're still identified with the vehicle, how are you going to be shepherd? You're going to be kicked left and right. You're going to be, people are going to mop the floor with you. Your face is going to clean every corner of this world. You're going to eat shit. The shepherd has to have some resilience, has to have some power, some radiance, something that's not of this world. In order to bring into this world something that's not of this world, it's not enough to just want to be helpful. A shepherd is not just helpful, they're powerful. They're superheroes. They can do shit no one else can do. They can see shit no one else can see. They can act in a balanced way like no one else can.
And then in this case, it doesn't, it doesn't matter where the feedback comes from, because I think what scares me the most is the feedback from previous teachers and being seen through the eyes of them. But I think I should look into that. Or even if the person, I don't know, it's like a math or satsang teacher or whatever, somehow that feedback matters more, but I think that's my obstacle. Anyway, I should drop it all anyway.
You shouldn't drop anything. Just be aware of what you're currently doing and see what's true for you. I'm just pointing out that what's not yet true for you is that you want real freedom. That doesn't mean you should want real freedom, because that would be an artificial construct. It just means that you can now be aware of that you don't really want the freedom. And in that awareness, the desire for freedom can grow naturally, organically, if it resonates. But you should just be more aware. I'm just pointing stuff out so that you can become aware of it more. Then you have free will. Otherwise, you don't have choice. Then you can figure out whether you're ready for greater freedom or whether you want to keep tweaking the vehicle as if that's going to determine how well you're doing.
Bentinho, this has to do with that thing, if you see a Buddha chop his head off, because when you have the teachers in the world and the masters, that's the biggest obstacle to, let's say, be beyond their actually feedback. So you would be wanting more freedom. And
no, not at all. You should chop your own head off.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who arises. It will always be a symbol for your insecurity or confidence. That polarity of mistaken identity. So just because someone is not a teacher and you don't refer them, you don't have the same reverence for them, you don't have the same respect for them, or you don't give them as much power as you would a teacher, it doesn't mean you're not still using them. So if you cut off the heads of your teachers, you're actually throwing away your biggest opportunity to uproot the source of all your shit, which will just continue to survive in the presence of non-teachers because you don't give them as much power. But it doesn't mean that your insecurity is not still there. So the teachers bring that out. The reason you feel so uncomfortable around a teacher is because you identify them as really as yourself, your true self, the all-watching eye, and you believe they see everything about you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but here's the thing. If you can be afraid of being seen by another, it means you already see that you're full of shit. If you have no notion that you're full of shit, you wouldn't be afraid of meeting a teacher because you would just believe that teacher is going to see everything amazing about you because you're so in alignment. So if you already see where you're full of shit and you just don't want to show that to a teacher, then you're even more full of shit because you see that you're full of shit, but you're not actually addressing it. You're just waiting to sort of like play this game with a teacher to like get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. But if you have any fear to be in the presence of a clear teacher, it means you already have all the awareness you need to make the same changes that you're using them for. You know, that's why we charge. It's because you're using us, so you might as well pay for it. Right? So you already see it. You already know what's out of alignment in yourselves. It's not, you don't need to come to me to see it. In fact, you only come to me if you already know there's something off. So just trust your awareness and become your own teacher as much as you can. The shepherd is in the early stages of becoming their own full-fledged teacher, where the mirror no longer needs a teacher at all. The shepherd still does, but to a great extent is their own teacher.
So you're saying they can be symbols of my own secureness, and they play out this polarity?
Yes, but everyone is. You just don't notice it because it flies under the radar. But you're abusing everybody. As long as you're insecure and falsely humble, you're going to abuse every situation, and you're going to be manipulative as fuck. With the teachers, it just comes out more because you know you can't fool them. So you get uncomfortable because what can you do? You know you're full of shit. You know you're fooling everyone. In the presence of the teacher, you know that you will have to face the fact that that's already known.
Yeah, and gets intensified. Yeah.
Cool. So just sit with this for a bit. I'm going to move on to the next questioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bentinho.
You're not the small self.
Okay.
Okay. The two troublemakers have raised their hands. Let me see. Which one shall we accept first? All right, Jessica, you were first.
Mute myself. Okay. Hi. First of all, thank you for letting me use you so shamelessly in Barlow. That was amazing. Based on what you just said now. So thank you for that. But moving on, my question is how to handle relationships gracefully as you become more empty. And the context is that as a lot of programming has been dropping away, specifically in my marriage, I just don't get into the games that develop over 10 years of being married anymore with my husband. And so what's happened is, whereas before we would just get into the same patterns and everything seemed to be fine for him because, you know, we would have our typical fights and typical situations, typical back and forth, whatever it was. Now that I don't enter into any of that, he's, I guess, taking it very strangely, or he's now starting to see that any problems that we had actually did exist or were there. I don't know how to explain. And that's all fine, except it's a little bit like, I'm not sure if I'm balancing love with wisdom in it, because it looks pretty painful from what I see him expressing. And obviously I don't want to go back to the old patterns, but I'm not sure how, while mirroring him or while being in this situation, this dynamic, while he's working through some of those things, how to handle it in a way that that respects our previous commitments and also gives him the opportunity to grow with that. And also me, I mean, obviously, but it's more a question of, since I'm so clear and so rested in the, just like whatever outcome happens is fine. And I don't know if I'm being clear with my question, actually.
Cool. I'm curious if anyone in the group would like to share how this landed for them. If so, just raise your hand. What their intuitive take is on this, or observation. If you're open to that, Jessica.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Amaine? How do I pronounce this again?
Sorry, Emmeline.
Emmeline.
I was just wondering, Jessica, why you're asking the question. And since we've been going through the whole self-realization school sessions, this would seem to me a very typical thing where you just, yeah, you don't need anything from this question, I would think.
Say that again, I'm not.
Yeah, these questions, it seems like just a mind, it's like a smaller self question that pops up, and then this is what we've been practicing a lot lately, where you just say to it, we don't need anything from this, anything to change. Yeah, it's not, I don't know, you can just let it be.
All right, Emmeline, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, cool. So before going into advice, just what's your experience of it? Just your observation, your feeling. You kind of shared it, but like, how would you rephrase that?
Well, I'm just really wondering why Jessica's asking the question.
Okay, cool. You're wondering why she's asking the question. So you have a feeling that you guys still hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Let me check my battery levels here. %. If someone in the meantime could figure out, we have an extension cord out there that I just bought yesterday. It's a white one. It's by the exit of the dining table. Yeah, where the dining table enters the patio. And then I may need one of these converters. Actually, I may have one here. Let's see. Oh yeah, I have one here. We're good. Cool. So, what do you think that question would facilitate? Why she's asking the question? Would that be something you would ask her? If it was like a one-on-one situation, would you ask her, why are you asking the question?
Yes, I think I would.
Cool. So, Jessica, let's see.
Yes.
So why are you asking the question?
Okay, so I'm asking the question because I'd like to hone my shepherding skills and have picked up on this this change in relating and energy in my closest personal relationship. And I do sense an imbalance with my interactions in terms of balance. I don't want to hurt anybody. And I feel like possible that with the emptying out, I'm hurting someone. I'm possibly hurting him or being unnecessary pain. Maybe I could be clearer with him or something. So the advice would be how does one maintain, or not even maintain, because that's not necessarily the goal. How does one move gracefully in relating with other selves during the clearing out process?
Cool, thank you. Emmeline, what's your take on that?
I like this new game. My answer to most things is faith. Especially, well, I'm really like, for Jessica, I know that.
So, hold up. Testing. Hello? Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right, cool. There's just a bit of choppiness that's been increasing over the past 20 minutes. So Emmeline, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sweet. Jessica, you can hear me?
Yeah.
So all I heard, Emmeline, before I cut out was that you were answering the question. So I was going to stop you there and say that you overstep an important thing that was happening. So if you go back to her response, to Jessica's response, what did you feel?
What did I feel? It felt valid. It felt very understandable. I could relate to it, to everything she said. And it felt, it did feel like a very human level sort of question, which I'm not actually used to from Jessica. So yeah, which is why I immediately sort of moved on to the level of just feeling, which was the answer, faith for me. But yeah.
So if you wouldn't move on to the answer, what would you address? What are you noticing in her vibration and her behavior?
That she is still identifying to the person level.
Okay, what else? Or in what way? In what way that would give you an entrance point to make a difference in her experience? Because sometimes saying you're identified with the person just doesn't cut it for people. But if you hit the nail on the head, you can actually, in a more fine-tuned way, pinpoint exactly what's happening. They can recognize the pattern, and then it can release.
I don't know. Yeah, there seems to be some insecurity, some, a large importance to the marriage, to the story.
What if your life depended on it, or her life depended on it, and you had to figure out what it was right now? What would it be?
Well, then I get back to giving the answer, which is not what you want me to say,
No,
right?
all right. Well, give it another go. What's the answer?
What's the answer? I do get back to faith again, that she's doing great, and yeah.
Pow, pow. All right, who's next? This is good. Awesome shot. We'll be doing more of this too, by the way. I'll be letting you guys interact and then I'll reflect upon that, because a big part of being a shepherd is to be able to reflect to each other and to be able to carry yourself that clearly in interactions. So Jessica, why the anxiety?
Why the anxiety? Well, when you were asking Emmeline what...
Why are you so busy? Who are you showing off for? What are you avoiding?
Intended for...
What?
Hey, no, wait, what? No, it's a program, I guess, the anxiety. It's always been there. I'm not even sure if I'm connected anymore. Yeah, I am. Okay. Maybe I care too much. Don't know. Don't even know if Bentinho is still connected because I can't see him. But a big sense of responsibility. Oh, there he is. He's back.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Yeah. So I was saying that anxiety's always been there. It's part of a program, and probably I have like this inflated sense of responsibility for the well-being of others.
Okay. But what are you afraid of? Because those are expressions.
Yeah.
If I have an inflated responsibility of others, it's an expression of me being afraid of something.
Mm-hmm.
What's the worst thing that could happen to you in this life?
Well, from this sort of thought process that others will feel bad and blame me, and then I don't know, nothing really, actually. Yeah.
So why is this not touching for you yet? Why do you stay up in the mind? What are you afraid of? Why are you afraid to let the walls come down? You're not afraid to ask questions and put an image up and ask interesting things. You've demonstrated this. So you're not afraid to be seen as what you put on. But why so anxious? What are you racing from? What would happen if you slow down all the way? What would be revealed? What's so fundamentally wrong with you as you are that you need to race but this appearance, which is not you? And where did that belief come from? That something is wrong with you. Did you believe this before you took on the body? Or did it come with the package? . . 。  . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . Much better already. I can feel your soul stream coming in. And you're not bringing bullshit up. All this noise is interference, which is an act of not loving yourself. It's an act of actually destroying yourself. Bit by bit, we destroy ourselves. Every time that we try, for whatever reason, that we try hard, or that we're destroying ourselves. It's an act of not loving ourselves. When we completely relax, yes, well, there's some stuff that may arise, but we're beginning to love ourselves. And we have to trust that flow. Indeed, have faith. Do you feel the stream?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel the stream. I feel you oozing right now. I feel there's a transmission of soul energy that's coming through the body. It's much more efficient than asking questions to try to alter this slower self. If you're just being what you are, and you allow that to come through, and you're not putting these walls up, then the transmission from true self into this world through the body mind is much more effortless. It's instant. And there's greater self-love, and no need to fear anything that arises, because it's not you. It can all be looked at. It can all be understood. So just slow down a little bit more. You specifically. Just slow down. Slow down. There's nothing wrong with you whatsoever. No level whatsoever. And you can just relax. All right. Thank you.
Can't even talk. Thank you.
Let's see. Leonie, did you still want to share, or did it pass? Deep ponder.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, deep ponder.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't receive you really well.
Say again?
I can't receive your voice really well. At times
It's choppy?
Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah. It's the internet here. That's the only downside of traveling. It's like the Wi-Fi is not so stable lately. Can everyone else give me a thumbs up if the quality is decent, and thumbs down if it's choppy? All right, things seem smoother now on my end. I switched to my phone's hotspot. Can you guys hear me better? See me better? Yay! All right. Okay, sorry for the interruptions, guys. Leonie, to proceed.
Yeah. Hi. I'm not sure what to share, but last week has been, can you hear me or no?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Last week has been a bumpy ride because it looked like there was nothing but shit going on inside this brain and this body. And I mean, I already knew I had some shit going on, but it was like a lot going on. Basically, the main programs that are running are, well, there are a lot, but the main programs is being jealous, being judgmental, too little heart, only mind, only like wisdom. Hold on, my little boy is coming into the room, but hold on just a second. Flynn, can you go downstairs to Noah, please? Yeah, thanks. I'll come to you in a sec, okay?
Mom.
Now just go. You can ask Noah. Yeah, give it to Noah. Thanks. Sorry. Yeah, so basically, I felt like, well, upgrading this body-mind system has been like a thing for me to improve being out of wanting to be best, out of a program of perfectionism. So it really helped you saying that it's that I can change the view on it, like to improve. Well, basically, I don't know what I want to say. Hold on. Basically, I was confused because in my perspective, it has brought me so far to work and work and work and work and improve and improve. And but then I had this kind of realization, like, but if this is how Source wants me to be in this moment, it's not that I don't have to improve or clear more out, but isn't it arrogance? Because I know arrogance a lot. Isn't it arrogance to just want to improve that all the time? So then it got me confused, like, where do I rest or where do I keep on going? And yeah. And this victim thingy you told me in the last Q&A is a big thing under the cover. So basically I've been like ping-ponging all those balls this last week. Yeah. And even, you know, even wanting to have freedom, which is really strong up to a certain point, where is it wanting to escape all this shit? Or, you know, it got like, I don't know, that's it. Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah, sorry.
The desire for freedom and the desire to escape is the same thing. The expression of escapism is, or bypassing would be to hide in a perspective away from other perspectives. Whereas freedom is to go beyond all perspectives, to really be naked, to really be pure in this moment, to not make up anything about anything, basically to not have a mind, just to be wide open, pristine, clear space. Even if we can do this for a few seconds, even if we can rest without a perspective being our own, doesn't mean a perspective can't pass through, but we're not the perspective and we're not holding on to the perspective. We can do that repeatedly. It will become natural nature. It'll become second nature. Again, you want to make your first nature second nature through practice. So all of this can be alleviated, like all the shit you've been ping-ponging, as you said. All of this can be alleviated if you directly see that it's not you, that you're not contained in any of it. And for me, and I encourage all the other shepherds here to practice that too, which is when Leonie was talking, can you actually sense where, it's not where like a location so much, but it is, how do I describe this? It is like the bubble effect that I've expressed before, where you feel like everyone is inside this bubble and you can kind of feel like where they're at, like where are they seeing themselves to be? Where do they feel that they are? And is that vast? Is that beyond this body? Or is it as a body using the eyes and the ears, but not really being aware of how they're using it because they're it? So to what degree is someone in that bubble? To what degree is someone not wide open and awake? To what degree is someone collapsed into a bubble? And as long as you are collapsed into a bubble, you will not experience the freedom and you will not experience the clarity required to optimize the vehicle free of bypassing. You only want to escape because you're not free. It is essentially the same desire. So you desire freedom. That's why you want to escape all the shit. But once you actually escape all the shit, then you don't mind the shit because you're free. So now you can look at it, but with much more skill and clarity. So So to develop an awareness, I'm speaking to everyone now, to develop an awareness of the feeling of stuckness, the feeling of constriction, the feeling of limitation, the feeling of where you're coming from, the feeling of a location. Just increase your awareness of that. Where are you still coming from? A location. And show me all your problems and processes and how relevant they are if you didn't have that sense of location. Or rather, if you didn't identify with it. How many of your processes would still be relevant if you didn't actually believe in the location? And you'll see your problems are directly connected. They're like strings with projections, but they're all connected to the bubble of a location. So, or a self, or a person. So when you notice that, you can release it. And you can just not come from it, even while it's appearing. Everything can just happen. You're not stuck in it. You're beyond it. Simultaneously, you're in this vastness. You're formless.
I think a lot of times, am I allowed to speak now?
Yes, you are allowed to speak.
Okay. I think maybe 90% of the time, no, a bit less lately, I'm approaching the vastness from the person perspective, like, oh, sorry. I'm boring you.
No, it's just this planet, not you.
Okay. Maybe it's boring.
No, go on.
Okay. Yeah, I think the coin didn't drop. Like feeling a person doing all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it feels like if I want, I can tap into this vastness, but I would like to let the coin drop of realizing that all this vastness is me instead of the person doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just repeated exposure. Just continue to sense into it. Whatever you pay attention to the longest will become your sense of self. Because what you are is formless. So whatever you put in front of it, it will take on that shape. Now, if you start to recognize the formless itself repeatedly, then the formless starts to know itself as the formless. You can also say vastness is one of the results from that. Formlessness is a sense of vastness versus a sense of restriction.
Yeah.
All right, just work somewhere with that. Thank you for sharing. Part of it is also just to be heard and to upload what you're processing to the field. Robina?
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Where are you on my screen? Oh, there you are. Yep.
I just wanted to share just very simply a bit of my process, and then I had a question. Because what you were saying at the beginning about the power of this group is really working with me. Being in a small groups, and particularly the suggestion that Corey Smith had to have a hiding no more group where we just express ourselves passing a stick, as it were, and with no coaching, no reflection, nothing. And I found that process incredibly powerful, just the first one, and a subsequent one as well. And it was like just pure expression of my doubts, my insecurities, everything that's been coming up in this group since the beginning, the duality in me, and it was very powerful just to express it and feel mirrored back to me silence and love and space. Very, very, very powerful. And I then had a deep experience going deeply into what I felt was holding me back in this process. The duality, I went through it, feeling it fully, went through it into a space of light and feeling on a deeper level than ever before that I am the light. And so now looking at everything from that perspective. So being very inclusive of everything, as you say, but seeing it in from a different perspective. So the unifying force of the light. And so I just wanted to ask you that the light that I deeply sense I am, is that formlessness?
That is a manifestation of formlessness. But the light, I think the light that you describe is also formless. It's like this very substance of appearances. So it's like the sand inside of a sandcastle. It's also the sand inside of a sea star shape sand. It's the same everywhere. So it's formless in that sense, but it is visible, it is manifest. But it is formless light. The first light that appeared, so to speak, the light of all other lights. The light beneath or within all other light. God's light, light of the eye. That's wonderful. I'm happy for this process. And I'm glad that Corey, what's his name? Corey Smith started this. And thank you for sharing your process. So this was your question, right? About the light?
Yeah. And also just wanting to share the power of the groups, because there's another group that we meet regularly, and the way they reflect back is really beautiful, really shepherding and mirroring.
Wonderful. I think the subgroups are crucial to integrate the material. I really recommend people, if you are not currently yet in a subgroup that regularly meets, definitely go and connect to one. Thank you, Rabina. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. No.
Cool. Something that I'll share with you guys now, because I'm noticing it, is that so there's different ways. There's different ways one can teach or interact with a group. In this case, in this session, I felt pretty strongly to not overwhelm or overpower or even lead or guide so much. So I've done that in the past too. I do that sometimes. I just take a back seat. I basically just chill and see what happens. Usually when I do that, the meetings are, one could say, I guess you could say, more boring, less perhaps interesting, less directional, less epic, less cosmic, less whatever, cutting edge. I mean, those are all judgments. Those are all perspectives. Or not even necessarily judgments. Those are just potential ways that you could view it, but things that I've sensed people think when I do it this way. So I used to always feel a pressure to want to make every meeting feel epic, like it delivers something that people can't forget. But with the groups that are closer to me, like that are more committed, that are more long-term, I feel less relevance to do that, at least all the time. Sometimes I do feel the relevance of it, but then it's like a boost. But you'll notice there'll be meetings that are more epic, if you will, or more on fire. And then there's also sessions where I'll just kind of sit back and see what you guys generate, where you're at. Because if I, or you can apply this to you. The reason I'm sharing this is because you're also a teacher in your own life. So if you're always overwhelming, if you're always being the teacher, or if you're always like channeling the vibration into the group, then you can't really see what's going on, because you'll be blinded by your own light, if you will. And other people will be blinded by your light, and they'll take it on, and it's good. It definitely has a shifting capacity, and 90% of what was up for them no longer is up for them by the end of that session. So it has a power to it. But chances are that that's not a permanent effect. And so the stuff that is there that's being overwhelmed by the light gets alleviated, it gets transformed a little bit, but rarely does it permanently drop away. And so if I or you as a teacher were to always do that, always overwhelm it with your vibration and with your words, then sometimes you'll miss what's going on and what's actually up for people. And to an extent, that's also okay, because I'm not going to get into every little nitty-gritty psychological issue all of you guys have. Like, that's your responsibility. My responsibility for this group is to set a certain average and to try to move that average baseline up into clarity as much as we can. But you'll find me, and again, you can apply this to yourself and see where the balance lies for you in your interactions with your students or your people or your friends or whatever, whether now or in the future. Is the balance of having epic meetings where you're overwhelmed with your vibration versus sitting in the back of the bus kind of meetings and seeing who's going to take over the steering wheel or what's going to happen and what's really happening, what's really there. So an important part of that is for you as the teacher to really accept just every bit of boringness and or awkwardness and or slow process and or whatever it is that arises, to purify yourself in that way and to find the love and the compassion in not overwhelming anything, in hardly altering anything at all, just letting them, and especially when you're in a group setting, you'll feel the perspectives of others as well. But can you also let that be? Can you also let them suffer through the slower processes? Can you also let them endure the slower interactions? Can you also let them relax their impatience and or perhaps their need for the teacher to deliver an epic energy flow? Can you find love in a different way rather than being hooked up to this fountain of light and being beamed up? Can you actually find a source of love that is okay with everything exactly as it is and that appreciates the endless, infinite process of each entity that's behind that question? Can you appreciate the fullness of the Creator in that entire lifetime and beyond that is visible, or rather invisible, but it's visible if you train yourself to see it, beyond the surface of the question or the process or the stagnation or the stuckness? And can you really just let that stuckness be there and not overwhelm it? And I've found it good to practice both, to be able to overwhelm and take over, so to speak, if permission is given for this, but also to let people feel the slowness of the process of the human nature, the human mind. And then here, having it here as a group allows you all to see really where you're at with that patience. How deeply are you able to tune into another person's process? How much are you here for yourself to get a boost? How much of a waste of time does this feel to some of you, perhaps? Because it's not that big fountain. And then what process goes on for you then? Like, how can you purify your own impatience and your own need for sensationalism in spirituality? So just think, observe. And there's nothing quite as powerful as just everyone really coming to a stop. And sometimes stuckness is a means to actually stop. Reflections of stuckness, reflections of slowness can actually be avenues towards everyone like kind of giving up whatever they were holding on to or hoping for or expecting or wanting to create or intending, and for all that to then stop, a love can arise and this simultaneous an appreciation for the multiverses that are all here peeking through these eyeballs. And that in and of itself is a beautiful teaching. To not need to go anywhere, to have infinite patience for one person, even if the world is burning in the meantime, and you could be mending so many fires, but to just sit down with one person and give them 5 hours of your time. To feel the purification process that is offered to you in that interaction. Where can you let go of time and imperfection and projecting lack onto that situation? Because the shepherd is infinitely patient. It's only the person that's impatient. that has an agenda. So in boring interactions, it's easier to see where you're still having expectations and where that's tied to his personal sense of self that's identified with the false. And then you can let that fall away, purify, and see that, why am I trying to get something? What do I really want to consume out of this? Why is that? Do I really believe I'm lacking something? Sometimes we just have to slow down, stop all the way. And a few years ago, I would be more likely to conjure it up anyway, to conjure up the light anyway. Even if the group energy wasn't there, I would kind of like puff myself up energetically and just start it and kind of like almost fake it till we made it, and then get the flow going with everyone and then create that. But lately, or in recent years, more and more I've just been feeling like, no, if it's not there, it's not there. Like if it's not being generated in that moment, it's not meant to be generated. And so I'm not going out of my way as much to generate something unnatural. Instead, just be with what is. The impatience, the discomfort, the boringness, the tiredness, the non-productiveness, the stuckness. It's like a Vipassana retreat. You just sit your ass down and whatever is it, see where your endurance levels are at. And purify yourself in the process. And yes, it does feel really sweet and peaceful. Camille. One, to surrender to it. And it's a relaxation that happens too. And like I said, purification of self, where we want to puff ourselves up, so to speak. Where we want the juice of sensationalistic spirituality versus actually just becoming completely quiet with ourselves. Exposing the haste, the desire for hastiness, which is a remnant of the person. Doesn't come from the shepherd. Well, the shepherd, the lower level shepherd, fourth density shepherd. Hello, my beautiful friends. Can you hear me again? All right. I was gonna say, this feels like a point in the course where one chapter kind of ends and we're ready to reset. And so I actually have no clue what that looks like. I have no idea what that should look like. I just know that I have that sensation of a resetting, a regrouping, if you will. And we'll just translate it as it comes. But to kickstart that process, I would love to hear if you guys have any inspiration for the next, say, the next segment, the next 2 to 3 months or so. What do you feel? What do you feel, even though this kind of contradicts what I just said, what do you want to get out of this? Just to put it very plainly. / what do you want to give to it? But assuming that's kind of the same, what would you like this to be? And don't worry, if you guys don't come up with anything, I will, and there's plenty of topics I could still address. But just as a general intuitive direction, I'm curious to hear your desires, really, at this point, in your interaction, your relationship to this course, to this group, and to me. What do you really desire the most? And you can type it, or you can raise your hand. If it's just a short little addition, like a 1 sentence, just type it maybe. If there's something you want to clarify or like a longer inspiration you have, then maybe raise your hand. And I'll read the responses I see so far. Dissolved person. Meeting each other would be nice. I agree. And to that point, I'm actually happy we didn't organize it yet, because there's quite a few things that I'm learning from the Italy retreat we just did, and now the upcoming retreat here in Mallorca. So I feel that will help us also optimize, create a better time for when we schedule our meeting. Upgrade my personal life, gathering with people, time for a family gathering, putting out fires, complete melting into the beloved and beyond, being self all the time in expression. Yes, definitely meeting would help. It was really helpful to train us more like you did today, to become more like a shepherd, seeing beneath other one's questions. Nice. Practicing and coaching, guiding each other. Okay, good. Collaborate towards the sheep, social capital. Continue to clear out the container so we are shining crystal clear mirrors. Nice. Further integrating with awareness and practicing expressing more and more from a pure place. What are the significant projects, programs that will make a difference, and how do we contribute to them? Cool. Affecting our creator God aspect of self, the one, be the new world. A pause of 2 months and everybody clearing out as much as possible, meet fresh again and see where we are at then. Interesting. Tap into individual gifts and calling and work together towards upgrading civilization. Those are all cool, very cool. So it definitely seems like you guys are ready to meet. So help me out with this in terms of help find a venue that you think is accessible to everyone, and that when we split all the expenses for the venue, because the venue was not included in the trip, that is affordable for everyone and it could hold, I guess, up to 100 people. It's unlikely everyone will make it there physically. So we can also look for something for 70 or 80 people. But so if any venues come to mind, or any countries or any locations or any designs for this, let's kind of co-create this in the group. How to align more and more with calling work. Okay. Also sounds like you guys are ready for the more direct interactions with each other and being reflected while you're coaching each other, which I think actually is extremely helpful. And let's see if we can also figure out different ways to do this, like actually schedule certain one-on-one sessions that are being observed, or like give two people like 10 minutes at a time to sort of reflect each other. Or I'm not quite sure what would be the best design for this, for it to be most fluid and most engaging for all viewers, and or split up and do the same in little subgroups. Buddy program, nice. So yeah, I'll think about some designs, some multi-layered designs that can work both on an individual level and as a group and as a subgroup, but also feel free to really, because you're on the other end of this call, if you will, you're at the participant's end. So if there's something that you feel would be really helpful and inspiring to you, I may not be aware of it. So either create it or bring it to my attention in the group, and then we can design something around it, possibly. How to integrate our cosmic self, which feels very true, but cold and laser-like into everyday life. Interesting. Cold and laser-like, cosmic self. Well, that's quite cold in space, I guess. Europe would be great. Selfish, but great. Okay, fair enough. Cool. All right, so let's do a really short meditation. right now. And then we'll just use the group in our own good timing, the Facebook group, to design some of these things going forward. Also, if you have more specific desires come up for the next 2 or 3 months in terms of this program, again, just write it down there. And the more sort of intel we get, the more we feel what the group actually wants as a whole. Maybe we can create 2 meetups, one in Europe, one in USA. I've also fell into that, and we could, yeah. And also feel into the how long of a session or gathering you guys want. Originally on the website, I said a weekend gathering, just because I thought that'd be accessible. At the time I lived in Sedona. So the idea was people just get their own accommodation and travel into Sedona. And then we hang out there and we gather there. But since I don't live there anymore, though I could go there, it might be best and it might be more intimate to have a venue like we have here. But it may be slightly more expensive depending on the breakup of the costs and stuff. And well, more than that, it might be a little tricky to find a venue for like 100 people. So, but let's create that. Let's see what we can find. And we could do one in Europe. We could do one in US. And by that, do you mean simultaneously where one sort of tunes in live? Or do you mean 2 separate events at a different date? So those are all things to think about. So yeah, let's design our get together now. Feels like the timing is there. And yeah, it doesn't have to stick to 1 or 2, and you know, there can be multiple 2 events on different dates. And yeah, this should be announced. This should be planned probably 2 months ahead of time at least, so that everyone has some heads up. And also, so let's work on 2 things this week. Or it doesn't even have to be a week. Let's make it shorter than that. Let's say that next 3 days, because I'll be quite available too. So I'll be reading your things, any posts that you make on the group. So for the next 3 days, let's all sort of put our brains together and our hearts together and design both the next segment of this course, just like what you want to put into it, what you want to get out of it, and how do you see that design-wise? Like, what is there a need of that would really support this to go that much deeper and beyond? And let's design the get-together together. So that's the homework for now. And still continue also the observation of if, as a cosmic being, I would never ... Just continue that awareness. And I really enjoyed some of these answers. They're really fun. But continue this awareness. As a cosmic being, I would not, and then observe yourself. Am I being the human self right now? And there's nothing wrong with that. You should totally love that, but not as who you are. Just see it as a silly mechanism and then purify it in that way. Just curious, how many more foundational sessions do we have? I don't know, because like I said before, what matters to me is that it feels complete. So it will never be completely complete, obviously, because we're all endless journeys. But I don't want to limit it to a certain amount of sessions. We'll see. I'll fill into it and say, I'll see when I feel like, okay, this is what this course's intention was, and its intention has been fulfilled. So I can't tell you for sure. But I don't feel that we'll stop within the next 3 months. So I think it'll go on beyond that point. Kelly, sure, yeah, let's start a poll, that's good. Yep, so again, no rush. Also with this course, there's no rush for me on my end of things. just want it to be, it's hard to predict the timing. I just called it a 6-month course because I had to give it some denomination, some timeline, but there's just waves of clarity, then there's waves of messiness and confusion, and then there's waves of it realigning and reintegrating. And this is just the way that the life of a shepherd is. And so you'll find that this course will reflect that. And to put a timer on that is a little constraining. So let's just flow with it. I love the messiness and confusion. Cool, good, happy to hear that. I mean, you know, that really is what the life is. The life of a shepherd is messiness and confusion, and somehow distilling the clarity inside of those experiences. Instead of finding clarity as this clear-cut thing or an answer like a person would, the shepherd needs to be able to hold so many flows, needs to be able to accept so many things at once, so many flows at once, and multidimensionally host space, if you will, and host that clarity, but without it being a personal type of clarity, without it being confined to a conclusion. So anything we go through here as a collective, as part of this course, is a reflection of what you have probably already encountered in your individual journey and what you'll continue to encounter as you really step up your service to others vibration. A few days notice on online meetings is appreciated. Mm-hmm. Cool. Cool. Also in 3 days, wait, when was this? The 8th? So on the 8th, if you guys have, those who saw the video by Keelan and Corey, if you have anything to show for yourself, that would be the date to post it. So just post in the group on the 8th, like anything, like a blog post or a coming out party or whatever it is that you've generated. Show us, let us see, because a part of this next phase also is indeed the coaching of each other, the reflection of that way, and the beginning to generate. I saw some of you say, what are some of the projects that would make a difference and how can we contribute to that? How can we create that? So that may be mostly for the last segment, which may be after this segment. Maybe what we're entering into now is the middle segment, having had the beginning segment. And then it could be that there's a middle and an ending. Kind of feels that way to me right now. So maybe the ending will mostly be, what can we actually generate now as a group, now that we've done some of this work and we've gotten clear on things. The foundation is laid and the group consciousness is cohesive. How can we move forward? But we'll have practice runs before that. So this is one of those practice runs. If you haven't seen the video, just check it out on the page. We could post a link to it again as well in the chat here. There's a few openings left for our retreat in Mallorca, which is this last minute thing we're doing here. As part of tier 1, you'd get 20% off. So that would be 4K instead of 5K. That includes dinners and stuff like that. And to an extent, it includes dinners that you're having by yourself or food that you're having by yourself. This starts on the 7th. I'm sure you guys are aware of it. So I probably don't need to promote this, but there is spaces left. So if you want to just hang out with us here, the mansion is really amazing. It's a really cool spot. And it's built in, when is it built? 1329. 1329, so it's older than the United States. And it's a really cool spot. It's 13 bedrooms, it's massive. Yeah, hard to describe. Maybe we'll release a video in the next few days of the property. It's a really cool spot. So if that resonates for you, super last minute, feel free to apply. Your chances as a tier 1 member are already higher to begin with. And you get the discount. So just send an email to lisa@bentinhomassaro.com. Anything else? Cool. Just take a deep breath. Visualize light entering into your crown, top of your head, and concentrating coming together in the center of your brain, center of your head, the pineal gland, if you will. See if you can open up the body, the energy centers, and let that light go down. See each energy center awaken, if you will, begin to blossom, just peacefully. No aggression ever. With energy work, you don't want any aggressiveness. You don't want any kundalini nonsense. You want it to flow. You want it to open. You want it to blossom. You want it gentle. You want it loving. No pushing, no forcing. You want to let it come. You want to receive it. Mhm. And there's so much love for you guys in this field. And thinking about getting together truly is an exciting thought. It's very radiant. Be amazing. In silence, we communicate much more clearly. Ultimately, even insights drop away and become tiring. Hope to see some of you guys here in a couple of days. I know Sahaja is coming, right? Right. Great. It'll be fun. We're prepping the space. Also, there's a couple of talks I gave over the past few weeks in different settings that I would like to be posted to you guys. One is a talk on trust I did during the, when Anurag and I had the Italy villa. And this was on the importance of trust and the value of trust at a high level group, sort of, or like an entity, like a corporation or something like this. And I was describing sort of the inner circle dynamics versus the outer circle dynamics, and this gravitational push and pull that happens, and the challenge that happens when you try to get close to the center, if you will. And so quite some interesting concepts came forth or were translated into physicality that I think you guys will benefit from. So we'll get that posted pretty soon. That's just audio though. And then there is, I think, a video that Marcel shot of me, but this depends on the Bussum people. But I was giving a talk to the people. They're sort of in a community right now, starting a community in Bussum in the Netherlands. And that got recorded, I think. So I would be happy to also have that be posted here. I think that was also a helpful talk in terms of where you guys are at with things. So, but that's up to Marcel and the crew over there. So yeah, you can look forward to that. Again, let's design the gathering and let's contemplate, just tune in. You don't have to immediately have an answer for this. Just drop in, and during one of your meditations the next 2 days, really visualize what's the highest vibratory state of this group going forward. And what does that look like? What are some of the components that you can download from that vision, translate into words now, so that we can actually hook up to that vision and co-generate that together. Cool. Thanks for your attention, Sven. Thanks for your patience. Here we are. Always here. So much love. And there is still a bit of a barrier with this technology thing. Meaning, maybe it's not the technology, it's just still the way we interact with it, mostly. And the environment that it creates. If you guys are open also to silent sessions over this platform, let me know. Because there still can be the expectation also that because we're on this platform and we're all gathering at the same time, that we should be delivering content somehow, or we should be clarifying things or talking, but it's not necessarily true. Whereas when you're actually spending some time here with us in the house and the team, it's just a matter of being together, living together, joking around together, being silent together, dropping in spontaneously, and having intense reflections. And is why we're starting to experiment with these types of retreats instead, smaller groups, but more living together kind of style, is because it's just so much fun and it's just so organic and transformative, because it can go in any which direction. And I would love to somehow be able to convey that to all of you guys, to transmit that or include you in that, as impractical as it seems. But so also, if you have any ideas around that, let me know. Hey, Stephen. So you guys made the move?
Yes. We're in Costa Rica. We even have a topless baby to show for it.
Topless watermelon.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Yeah, we got here about 3 days ago now, so we're still very much integrating into a very different atmosphere, very different energy, but it's really, really feels good. Very, very, very aligned. Yeah, thank you.
Did you buy a house there, or are you just like very temporarily still looking around?
Yeah, we rented something for the short term. Mainly we wanted to be here during the rainy season. So it's not raining right now, but it has been. We just want to experience that firsthand before we make a long-term commitment. So
that's good thinking.
We went to a party last night, and it's amazing. I mean, the coincidences, the synchronicities, there's this, I said to the lady who's our landlord, I said, it's sort of like they're all coalescing in this moment. I met a guy there that I knew 15 years ago in Brooklyn, of all places, who wanted to teach me how to play the Sufi flute, the ney, and there he was right in front of me in this party in the middle of the mountains of Costa Rica. It was just extraordinary.
Yeah, the place we're in is very remote compared to anywhere we've lived before, but the concentration of people who have been attracted here and I don't know, everything that they bring and the people that have chosen to be here is really, that's really magical.
Pretty special. It's loosely referred to as Chiripo, which is the mountain that this is all at the base of. It's the largest mountain in Costa Rica. But there are a few small, very small towns that all kind of comprise that location, if you will. San Gerardo, where we are, Canaan, Rivas, there's a few places. They're all sort of one place, really. It's pretty amazing. We have a waterfall right outside our window, like literally right outside our window. It's very, one of the things common here is people are very, very creative. There's a lot of creating and very much in harmony with nature and the earth. It sort of feels like a new society is underway in this place, which is really exciting to be here. We feel very lucky.
It's the perfect spot for us, I think, not physically, but like this part in our, where we are at, not physically, in this program, because I feel like we were, I don't know, the past 4 months have been this kind of, was like really like a lot of rapid triggers and shedding. And now, I don't know, we arrived here and we're kind of just really being here. It feels really good. And like seeing what arises during Barlow and after Barlow, we had a lot of creative inspirations and excitements, and we were right on the cusp of moving here. And so those are all kind of bubbling. And but since we've got here, we've just wanted to kind of really sink in. It's been great. Like, it just feels really good. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Nice. Great, guys. Awesome. Rest well. I'm sure you had some logistical journey over the past week or two.
Sophia's been pointing at the screen going, that's Bentinho. That's Bentinho. The whole time. It's been great. Bentinho and the Meditators. We thought it was like, it's like a band. It's Bentinho.
Hey, that's how we can fund the whole community. We just start touring together, living together, and playing music.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. It's good to connect to you all, and see you soon. Love you all.